Hi, and welcome to Queens Behind the Scenes. I'm your host, Sharice Beckett, and this is the place where we empower queens to lead, transform, and shine. I'm so excited to take you on this journey with me. Here's the deal. Sometimes it'll just be me and you all having fun, diving into some relatable chats about life goals and everything in between. We'll also be bringing on some incredible guests, experts who know their stuff when it comes to topics that impact us all, like career, health and wellness, relationships, or confidence building and tips. And of course, we'll be spotlighting those amazing stories of queens who are out there breaking barriers and making waves in their own unique ways on their own unique terms. So, whether we're having a heart to heart or learning from the best, Queens Behind the Scenes is your space for inspiration, laughs, and plenty of that queen energy. So, let's do this. As I stated previously, this is a two-part episode, and we are here to bring you that second part today. I have the honor of introducing a guest who truly exemplifies what it means to lead with purpose and resilience. Traci Mitchell is an Emmy Award-winning journalist, celebrated author, and passionate advocate of telling stories that matter. She's spent her career amplifying voices and shining a light on the truths that inspire change. Traci's journey is one of perseverance, self-discovery, and breaking barriers. Her work and personal experience have empowered countless women to embrace their worth and step into boldly their power. I'm thrilled to have her join us today to talk about self-love, resilience, and how she's used her platform to create impact. Traci, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Reese. It's so lovely to be here.
I love it. I love it. So let's dive in. We had this conversation about self-love before we were preparing for the show. So I think we have our stories, and the first portion of the show when I just recorded myself, I talked about like growing up in West Virginia, right? And like how I had the best of times in my Black community, but then when I stepped out of my community, it was largely white, and I, questioned my space and how I would take up space and what that space would be. And so self-love is just a powerful topic because I don't know if we're inherently born with it, and I don't know the psychology behind it. But for many of us, it's not something we're taught either. It's something we have to learn, often the hard way. So can you start by sharing a bit about your journey of self-love? What were some pivotal moments that help you understand its importance?
I think for me, it was, my mother was always there, obviously. And she was one of these women who had been knocked down so much and just kept standing up. And I remember the way my mom walked. She always walked with her kind of chest out and her shoulders back and her head up. And I remember as a little kid, I used to try to walk like her, right? And I'd have my head up.
That's so cute.
Right? Because I'm like, well, why does she walk like that? And I didn't get it. I didn't get it,
You
right?
didn't
And
get it.
she was always like the bubbly, the joy in the room. And she taught me early on as a kid. And you know how you learn these lessons as a kid, but you don't realize that they're a lesson until you become an adult,
Of
right?
course, absolutely.
But she taught me as a kid that no matter, what's happening to you, what's happening around you, it's them, not you, right? And so I think for me, I've always kind of walked through life like that, especially as a news reporter, right? Because
Yeah.
everything I covered every single day was horrible and tragic and deadly. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that kind of thing. And
Yeah.
so if I had allowed myself to take all of that in, that
Mm-hmm.
would change who I am, right? So I had to realize this is not me. This does
Yeah.
not bring me down. And you talked about being raised in West Virginia with your Black community. I have the same thing in New Orleans, right?
Yep.
We didn't really interact with white people except in passing.
Yeah.
My base was fully Black. And I
Oh,
remember
wow.
when I was a kid, I can't remember how old I was, but we moved to a new neighborhood and we were the first Black family in the neighborhood.
Oh my gosh. Oh, wow. That is like, wow. I mean, you think about that kind of thing and you don't think that it's so recent, right?
Right. Right. And it was hard. I mean, I remember, in our eyes, we were moving up to a beautiful house
Yep.
and it was much bigger than the house we were in, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we had, like, I think our first house, we only had two bedrooms or something like that. And this house had four bedrooms, right? So my
Okay.
sister and I could each have our own bedroom. And I remember I was all excited and I was in high school and I was like, Mom, can I take the bus? And she was like, I don't know. So, in the reason she paused is because the first Christmas we moved into this house, we decorated our house and we put the lights up and it was festive and fabulous. And I remember one day we were little and we walked outside to go to school, and the lights were on the ground. They had been slashed. There was like red paint on the ground that spelled out the N word
Oh my
all on the
gosh.
sidewalk in our driveway, and our dog was dead.
Okay, well now that this is crazy. I
Oh, it was
mean,
bizarre. And that
and
was
this
our
is in New
welcome.
Orleans?
This is in New Orleans. That was our welcome, our first Christmas in New Orleans. So we
Wow.
were never allowed to be home by ourselves. We had to go to my grandparents after school every single day, and my parents would pick us up from work on the way home from work, and then we would go to our house. That we got iron gates, and you know what I mean. It's like our house then became a fortress. So fast forward to high school, and
Yeah.
I said I wanted to take the bus home. My mom's like, I don't know. It had gotten better, calmer. We knew our neighbors, but no one had moved. So one of those neighbors actually did that thing that Christmas. Do you see what I'm saying? So you don't know who that was,
Right, yeah,
but
you
they
don't
were
know,
all
but
still
you know
there.
they live among you.
They live among me, right?
They
That's a
live
good way
among
of
you.
putting it. So I ended up taking the bus, and halfway I took the bus to drop me off at my street, but I had to walk like maybe 3, 4 blocks to get to my house, right? And
Yeah.
so I'm just walking along, and I'm just walking, and this group of guys they come by and they start taunting me and then yelling all of these horrible things. And they followed me all the way home in the car. So my heart is pounding in my chest. I'm gripping my backpack, you know what I mean? And I'm like, I just have to make it home. I just have to make it home. And there's no one around. So there's nowhere to go. I don't
No
know
help. Yeah.
anybody. I don't, and I'm like, I don't trust anybody.
No.
And right. So I get inside, I open my door, my hands are shaking, and I slam the door back and I lock the door and I sit there
Of
sobbing
course.
because it was
Terrified
horrible.
because you're terrified but also relieved that you're safe.
And I remember I got home, I called my mother, and she's like, okay, we're not doing that again. You see what I mean? So you
Yeah.
think it's good because it's bad. So I learned early on to protect myself, to love
Yeah.
myself. Do you see what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Yeah.
And it could have gone the other way, but you asked where that comes from. I think it comes from number one, knowing that you always have someone who will have your back, right? My mother, my sister.
Same. My mom too. Same thing. Very so. I just said my mom. It doesn't matter if I made a basket full of jelly beans. My mom's like my biggest cheerleader. She is a super supporter of me. So I totally
Right.
understand that.
Right. Well, that's how it has to be, right? And as a news reporter, I've met so many people, and honestly, a lot of people are like, "Where do you get this confidence from?" And when you have a safe home, that makes all the difference in the world.
It does. It really does. When you don't have to, when you're not going home, and your home is also a part of the warfare or turmoil that you have to face on the outside, and your parents always are uplifting you. And it's true. I mean, I will tell you, my mom used to say this saying, and I say it to this day about my kids, and she says it about my kids. My mom always would say, they don't make them no better than mine. She would say it in our, they don't make them no better than mine. And let me tell you, it is one of those things where if somebody is constantly pouring into you, you do have confidence.
You do. There's no question. And it's a gift, right? I think we take it for granted, right? Because
We do.
it's all we've ever known.
That's all yeah, I don't know any other way, but, and
Right.
that's this, you know what? I was just thinking about this, Tracy, because I was like, yeah, because I was like, I've always had like confidence. Now, there were times where I questioned, I mean, of
Of
course, like
course. Of
right,
course.
I grew up, in a small town, and, there were times where like, black guys would like white girls, and you're like, okay, well, there's no guys to date because they're, and you start to question, like, do I need to be something I'm not or whatever. But I always did have confidence in the fact of knowing that like I was a nice looking person and I was smart and like things like that. Because my mom and my grandmother and like just my family is like that. And so even my brother, who is 2.5 years younger than me, he's the same. I mean, he has confidence too. Um, like it's just that like you learn that, and to this day my mom will go, it was a snowstorm, and my mom goes, what are you doing? I was like, I'm going to get my nails done. She was like, no, people can't even go to work and you over here getting your
You're
nails.
like, but I'm getting my nails done.
I'm getting my nails done. And she was like, but it's something in you that wants to take care of yourself. And like, so I totally get that. Like, was there a time in your life when self-love felt out of reach though? And if so, like, how did you begin to reconnect with it?
Oh, 100%. I mean, it's sort of like your same story, right? When I was always in my community one of the darkest girls, right? You learn that in the South, right? Your skin color
Yeah.
is darker than everyone else, right?
Yeah.
You're not light. One of
Yeah.
my best friends, literally, I've known her since kindergarten. She was my first friend ever. And she, we were older. I think we were about to go to college. And she was dating this guy who was fabulous. I freaking loved him. And they broke up. And I said, I don't understand. What happened? Did he do something? I mean, and she goes, no, as I got older, I realized I shouldn't be with him. And I said, well, why? And she goes, well, he's your complexion. And imagine if I had babies your color. And I thought, I'm not even kidding. This is my best friend, right? And I was speechless because
Well, because that's
it,
so ignorant.
it's so ignorant, and but it caught me off guard, right? This is a girl
Of
I've known
course, it
since
caught
we
you
were
off
like
guard.
4 or 5 years old, who I consider to be my best friend. And what? Like, and it really shook me. And I remember talking to my mom, and my mom was like, she goes, Tracy, it's her, not you. You have to remember that. It
Yep.
is her struggle. That's something, that's her ignorance.
Yep.
That is her, you know what I mean? And
Yep.
I was like, oh, okay. But I realized too that we could be friends, but she needed to deal with her own thing, right? And over the years, that friendship kind of died, not even because of that, but because of her own issues,
Yeah.
right?
Well, that's how it happens, right? Like
Right.
it's there. I said on part one of this, I was talking about Black women and how we often are kind of asked to shrink ourselves
Oh,
to,
absolutely.
and us specifically, right? Like
Right.
asked to shrink yourself because we are big and we are bold and we are vibrant, and that comes across. Even we don't even have to say anything. We step in a room, right, Tracy? We step in a room, and it's like this is who we are, and we bring the energy. And I was like, for some reason that makes people uncomfortable, right? It makes them uncomfortable. But if me being my very existence is like, if my very existence is making you uncomfortable, that's some you shit. That's not some me shit. Like I can't help that. That's something you need to dig deep and figure out exactly what that is about, because
Yeah.
I'm not going to spend my time trying to dig into that because that's a you thing. So that is like those are things though when you're younger, right? That you don't really know it's a them thing and not a you thing. Like you don't know that, so you do start to question those. So I'm sure that incident with your friend
Oh my
was
gosh.
like it definitely probably played a part in your questioning, right?
Oh, 100%. Like, so for me, same thing. I never had a date in high school. Never really had a boyfriend in high school. There was one guy who kind of liked me, but we were like friends, that kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
And in growing up in New Orleans, where you have Creoles and you have, you know what I mean? And everyone, a lot of the Black people look white, frankly,
Yeah.
if you
Yeah.
don't
Yeah.
know any better, right? And you got me, right? And I'm
You got
like,
me.
okay, so I had to like embrace my own beauty. It wasn't until I really got to college, and my college roommate and I, she was over. She's still my best friend. Like we've been best friends since college,
I
right?
love
And she
that.
knows all the secrets. And she was over with her kids, and we were sitting down laughing. And she was telling my daughter, she goes, "Your mama was hot in college," and I was like, "I was not." And she goes, "Tracy," and it was this incident that I'd actually forgotten about. The entire basketball team, they called it an intervention, right? I wasn't dating anybody. I came home from class one day and they're all in my room. And I was like, they're ginormous. And I was like, what are you guys doing? And Marcy, my roommate,
Yep.
was cracking up laughing. She goes, they're having an intervention. They're trying to figure out why you won't date any of them. So they all decided that you can pick one of them and you have to pick right now. And I was like, you people are psychotic.
You're psychotic.
And we had the biggest laugh. We had a great time that night. We were all laughing and talking, and I didn't pick any of them because I was like, I do not want to date a basketball player.
I do not want to
Right?
do it. Yeah. Right. No, not my, yeah.
But it was one of the first times, honestly, in my life where I felt beautiful, right?
I will
because
tell you that. Yes, I understand. So it's funny, and you haven't even seen part one. And I talk about this. I talk about how when I went to college. So I went to when I left high school, I went to an HBCU, my first college, because I got married out of after my first year of college, and so I kind of was all over the place with my undergrad, just because I was
wow.
kind of following
Okay, but
my.
you need an episode on that, no?
I know, I know, I know
Right?
everywhere. Like because I was following my late husband who passed away, obviously, but I was following him for his job. And so I went to Cleveland State. I went to all these schools, but the first school I went to, and then I did finally get my undergrad, but it took a while. Um, but I went to West Virginia State College, which is now university, but it is an HBCU. And
Yep.
it is the first time I was on that yard. It was the first time I felt like I am in a space where they celebrated people that looked like me. And I'm not saying that I didn't have, because I think people confuse the confidence you have with that part of you, but there is an intersection there. And so,
Right.
there is, right? There is an intersection there. And I just am like, you know, it was really hard because a lot of the guys that I grew up with, again, they dated white girls, or, I did have two boyfriends in high school, and I also talked to other guys or whatever, but it was and not saying anything's wrong with that. Like, interracial dating is great. I mean, my husband is biracial. If that wasn't a thing, he would not exist. But what I'm saying is it doesn't leave a lot of confidence in black girls
No.
that people think that they're pretty. Like, if that's what you see, you honestly think that is this the world? And then when I went there, I was like, that is not the world. And I am never going back to that shit. Like, I was like, I'm not raising my kids. And I love West Virginia. I think it's gorgeous. I do. And I love my hometown. However, I can't subject my kids to those same kind of struggles that I had when I know that I have the resources and support to be able to not do that. And I can't say that my mom and my family did. So I am living in a different life and, financially and otherwise than they did. And so I had the option to be like, okay, well, we ain't doing that. But
Right?
funny enough, I did it. Funny enough, though, I moved into Chesterfield, Virginia, and it was a similar as what me grow. So,
Wow.
and I didn't find that out until after my daughter graduated. She would tell me some of the really racial things that she had to go through at that school. And so, you know, it is like those things, they play a part, don't they, in crafting who. It's like it's a balancing act of self-love, because you want to love yourself, but you want to know that other people love you, but you have to love yourself first. So it's a really interesting thing. And I went through it too. And life throws you the curveballs, and you
Absolutely.
have to be resilient, or you should be resilient. And what role has resilience played in your life personally and professionally? Because we, just like what you described, we have to be resilient and get back up on our feet and still bring the confidence and energy. So how do you do that?
It's so funny. Someone asked me that once before, and I honestly don't know how you do that. I mean, I think that it starts simply by putting one step in front of the other, right? No matter what knocks you down, you gotta get up.
You got to
You
get
gotta
up.
get up. And that's part of resilience, right? It's people think that someone said to me once, bad things don't happen to you. And I was like, ha! I was like, girl, I could tell you, like, seriously. And it's not that bad things are gonna happen. They're gonna happen.
They are.
But it's how you deal with them, right?
Yep.
It doesn't define you. It doesn't paralyze you. You can't let it. You know what I mean? You got
Yeah.
to get up and keep moving. I mean, the worst thing, I mean, I've had bad things happen to me. I mean, I can tick them off. I've had cancer, right? No
Yeah.
one knows that. Like,
Yeah.
because I don't sit there and wear it on my shoulder.
Yeah. You're
Uh,
not going around telling everybody that you were going to treatment or
no,
whatever. Yeah.
no. And I remember I was like, okay, I got this. I'm going to, what do I need to do? Right. I had to see 7 different doctors. Each doctor told me 7 different ways to get rid of the
Simple. Yeah.
cancer, right?
Different things. Yep.
It's a rare cancer. It's called dermatofibrosarcoma protuberans. The hell
That's
is
a
that?
long word.
Right? And I you once you have cancer, you kind of live with that for the rest of your life, right? You have to get checked all the time. You have to
You
make
have to
sure
get
you're doing the right
scans.
thing.
Yeah.
That's a knockdown. But I mean, I've had countless things, but the thing that literally turned me upside down, my mother died.
That'll
That
do it.
girl, I was like, I thought I had gone through hard things. Now that, and I feel like if I can get up from that, I talk to my mother anywhere from 10 to 20 times a day. I'd
Well,
be
me and
like,
my mom are similar. Yep.
Mama, Mama,
Mom.
girl, I was walking down the street. You know what I mean?
Yep. Same thing. I'm like, Mom, where are you at?
Yeah, right, you're right, right. Why you didn't call me this
Why you
morning?
ain't
I
call me
woke
back?
up and
Yeah.
you didn't call me. Like, you know what I mean? It was just like silly things.
Yes.
Anything that happened to me, I'd be like, Mom, you know what? This woman cut me off today. You should have seen me. I was so mad. And you know
Yes.
what I mean? Like, she was like my constant for
Yep.
everything. I told
Yeah.
my husband once, and I do love my husband. I said, let me explain something to you. If you and my mama are falling off different sides of the cliff, I'm saving my mama.
You said I'm saving my
He
mama.
was like, you didn't have to say that. And I was like, I just need you to know I'm
I
saving
did you.
my mama.
I'm saving my mom.
Right? I was like, I can get another husband. I cannot get
Not
another
get another
mama.
mom. You can't. You
And he was
cannot.
like, he goes, he loved my mom too. He goes, oh, I ain't gonna lie. I can understand why you would save her. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's how I felt about my mom. So that flipped me upside down for a
Yeah.
long time. Like, I still get teary eyed talking about my freaking mama.
I mean, I'm sure you do. That's like, I mean, because your mom, like my mom actually raised us by herself. So, I mean, my dad was around and my stepfather was around, but like
right.
she really was the constant, right? And so, a similar thing, like I always am like, I'm so thankful that I still have my mom. I'm so thankful because she literally is, if I am down, if I am feeling like somebody broke me down, and I mean, let me tell you, it happens. I try to not allow it to happen, but there are times when you are passionate about things and things don't go your way and that crushes you, or you're insulted or whatever, or you're hurt or you're whatever. And my mom can literally make me feel better about all of that. And so like, and it's not even like she's like, honey, my mom's not like one of those type of people. She's like, they don't make them no better than mine, so you might as well just, my mom is like definitely a huge advocate for me. And so I have been able to, like, even when I lost my husband, I will tell you, when my first husband, like, he committed suicide, my mom and my brother were at my house that night. Like, and I lived 6 hours
Wow.
away from them, and they were there. I mean, they
They were
got there
like,
kind
pack
of
it
in the
up, let's go.
let's go. Yeah, they like,
Yep.
so that's my family. Like, I ain't nobody gonna, that's how we operate, and that's how she felt. Like, my mom was like, we're going down there, because the one thing my mom didn't want is for anybody to blame me. And so she, or any of that kind of, that comes up with
Oh,
suicide and things like
100%.
that. She's like, I don't want them jumping on you and you're down there by yourself with your kid. So that was also like a big thing for me. And like, and everything I will say, like the perseverance and triumph, that story of resilience, my mom is a large part of that story. Like, I know you as a journalist, you've told many stories of triumph and perseverance. Have those stories influenced or your own understanding of resilience and your approach to like challenges of self-love or challenges, period?
Oh, 100%. There was one story that has always stuck with me through the years. I so the way it works in the newsroom, you go into the newsroom in the morning. You
I
have
want to
this
hear
one.
this because I don't
Yeah,
ever
yeah,
know
yeah.
how it
So
works.
you go into the newsroom. Every day is a different day, right? You finish your day, it's done. Like, unlike
Done
most
and
jobs,
dusted,
right?
yeah.
Done. You're never going to see that again. So
Yep.
you go into the newsroom. There's always a morning meeting. The editors, the news director, all of the reporters are in that meeting, and we're discussing stories, right? It could be the big story of the day. It could be something that we're following up on, but we're all advocating for different stories. I may have a story idea that I pitch. So that particular morning, they're like, Trace, there was this horrible accident. This little girl died getting off the bus. I need you to go talk to her mother. And I was like, I hated talking to mothers after their
Mm-hmm.
child died. And I was like, can I do any other story? And they're like, no, we know how compassionate you are. Just go find out what happened. And I said, okay. So normally when you go on a story, you walk in with your photographer, and sometimes the camera is on, his or her shoulder, and it's rolling because you don't know what's going to happen. So you want to capture all those moments. So
Mm-hmm.
this particular time, I said to my photographer, I said, you know what, JC, why don't you wait in the car? Let me go and talk, because I don't want to walk in. She just lost her child. I don't want to walk in with
Yeah.
the camera. So I knock on the door. And the beauty of TV is when you're on TV, people know who you are.
Yeah.
And her door it was like a screen door, and I'm knocking on the door, and she said, Tracy, come in. And I was like, whoo, okay. And so I go in, and she goes, I knew that you would be here. And I was like, how did you know? And she goes,
Right.
I just know. And I said, well, if you don't want to talk, because in my mind, I didn't want to talk, right? Because it was just, I'm crying with her.
Yeah.
And I said, if you don't want to talk, it's totally fine. She goes, no, no, sit down. And we start talking. And what happened was these two girls who grew up together had a beef, right? One of the girls caught the other one smoking in the bathroom, and she told the teacher,
Oh.
right? The girl got in trouble. So they were on their way home, getting off of the bus. And they were the last ones getting off the bus. So they're arguing, right, as they're getting off the bus. And the little girl who was smoking pushed the other girl. The girl fell under the bus
Oh my God.
as the bus was pulling off
Oh my God.
and crushed her.
Oh
All the
no.
kids watched. This little girl was horrified. She's screaming and she's trying to pull her out. You know what I mean? Like, it was awful.
Yeah.
And I'm talking to the mother and she's telling me all these things that happened. And I'm watching her and her level of grace. And I mean, it was just her strength, her courage. And I'm just sitting there like she was crying. And she said, I said, how? I'm crying with her, right? And I said, oh my God. I said, I don't even know what to do. I don't know what to say. And she said, it's okay. She said, I give my daughter to God every day. And today he decided to keep her. And I thought, oh my God. And that has stayed with me because I know a mother's love. And to you lose your child at such a young age is unbearable. But this mother found the courage, the grace to honestly put one step in front of the other. And that's all she could do. But she said God decided to keep her. And there's so many stories like that. And I like kind of tuck them away, sort of like treasures that you allowed me into your life at this moment, at this time. And
Yeah.
it's like an honor to tell those stories, but there's so many like that where people just faced unimaginable tragedy, but they kept going.
Yeah. Yeah, wow, that would touch me too. I mean, I would probably have, I probably wouldn't have been able to complete the story,
Right,
honestly.
right, right, right.
Yeah, that, and it does, resilience and perseverance do that to you sometimes. They can humble you real quick because you see somebody going through something so painful
Right.
and so awful, and they're able to tell you it's okay. Like, oh my God, what do you mean? This is your, for
Right.
sure. Sometimes, and then sometimes we as women feel the pressure to always appear strong all the time, even when we're struggling. So, like, I know that for me, that had been a thing I had to chip away from, because there are times where I want to live the soft life. There are times where I want to be taken care of. I want
Yes.
somebody to pour into me, and I can just be like, I feel like I am getting poured into. Like, what advice would you have for the queens listening who may be struggling to balance that strength and vulnerability, and not having access to the soft life?
Well, it's so funny. I was when I was writing my book, there was a moment halfway through where I was like, I can't freaking do this. I cannot freaking do this. I was like, I can't. And I sat there, and my husband came in at that moment. He goes, "You okay? You're like talking to yourself." And I said, "I can't do this. It's too hard." And I sat there, and he like gave me a hug, and it was like it released like this fountain of tears. I'm like sobbing, like I lost something, right?
Yep.
And I was like, girl, get yourself together. The moment that really I kind of lean on all the time, I actually interviewed Oprah Winfrey.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So it was kind of a crazy time. It was way back. I think it was like 2005. And she was like doing this Live Your Best Life tour. And she was going all over the country. And she was coming to DC. I wanted tickets. Of course, tickets sold out like that. And I was like, I want to live my best life. I don't understand why I can't get a
Get
ticket to
these
live my best
tickets.
life. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so I decided that I would interview her. And I went to my boss and I said, hey, I want to interview Oprah. If I interview Oprah, can I get a photographer on the weekend? And she's like, she fell out laughing. She goes, you are going to interview Oprah. I was like, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. She's Tracy, how are you going to interview Oprah? I said, I don't know yet. I said,
I don't
but
have a
I'm going to
plan.
interview Oprah. Right, right, right. I just haven't figured it out yet.
I have
And
an
so
idea.
she goes, okay, if you get Oprah, I'm gonna give you a photographer. I said, okay. So I literally, Sherry, spent my whole freaking life trying to figure out how I'm gonna interview Oprah, right? I am not even kidding. I was like on the phone with everybody. I was like calling people I barely knew.
You
Like,
call it
you know
Stedman.
anybody who knows Oprah? And I was like, oh my God, I got to interview Oprah. And so I talked to one of my friends and she goes, Trace, you work for Hearst? And I said, yeah, yeah, yeah. She goes, Hearst Magazine publishes Oprah's magazine. I was like, oh, are you freaking? I know, right? So I called my mentor, who was a senior vice president with hers. And I was like, okay, Uncle Fred. I called him Uncle Fred. I said,
Mm-hmm.
Uncle Fred, I'm going to need your help on this one. I need to interview Oprah. And he fell out laughing. He goes, you are always coming up with something. I was like, I
Yeah, you
know,
always trying something.
right? And so anyway, he goes, okay, I know the publisher of her magazine. I said, can you put me in touch with the publisher of her magazine? But you got to put in a good word and let him know I'm not crazy. And I really need to figure out how to make this happen. He goes, okay. So he calls him and then I call him, or her. I think it was a her at the time. Anyway, so she was like, she got on the phone with me and she's like, what do you want to do? I said, I want to interview Oprah. She goes, you know, everybody want to interview Oprah, right? I said, I know, but I really want to
I
interview
want to
Oprah,
do it
right?
more than anyone else.
Right? And so anyway, long story short, I end up talking to Oprah's publicist.
Oh my gosh.
And she says, I actually like you. And I said, oh, I'm glad.
I'm so
And so
happy
she,
about that.
right? And she goes, I'm going to figure out how to make this happen for you. And I was like, oh my God.
Oh
So
my
I ended up
goodness.
getting Oprah on the red carpet. It was me at the time, Entertainment Tonight, the Washington Post, and I think it was only three of us. That's it. But she granted this interview to me, right? So I was all excited and I'm waiting. So it was like the guy was first and he asked her some crazy ass question like, oh, I probably can't say ass, sorry. He asked her some question like, why do people like you? And she looked over at me and she goes, you know what? White men don't get it, do they? I was like, no, they do not, girl. And,
They
like I'm
don't.
talking to Oprah, like we friends. I was like, mm-mm. And
Mm-mm.
she's like, it's not that they like me; they like what I stand for. And she starts talking about it. And then he asked two questions and she's like, thank you. Because his questions were stupid, right? And she goes, thank you. So I thought, oh crap, I only get two questions. Okay, I got to come up. And so, I had all these questions, right? And so she comes over to me and I said, oh my gosh, thank you so much. This is such an honor to meet you. And she said, it's an honor to meet you too. And I said, all right, since my time is short, I'm going to get right to the point. I said, what do you give? There were thousands of women like screaming, crying, like all around us. And she goes, what do you give all of these women? I said, when I look out, I see Black women. I see white women, Asian women. Like I see women of all
Everywhere.
colors and
Yeah.
ethnicities. What do you give them? And she goes, I give them hope. I give them hope. And
Hope.
she goes, I'm a little Black girl from Mississippi who was not supposed to be here. My grandmother taught me how to wash clothes because she worked on a plantation and she washed clothes. And that's what I was supposed to do growing up. She goes, but I saw Sidney Poitier and I was like, Black people do that. And so I'm giving them hope. If I can do it, anybody can do it. And I said, but why are you so special? And she said, oh, you don't know. And I was like, what don't I know? You know what I mean? And so she goes,
Yeah, because
I'm
do I
not
need to
special.
know?
Right, right, right. She goes, I'm not special. And I was like, I gotta tell you, all these women will say that you are. And she goes, I'm really not. She said, Traci, you know what I do that other people don't do? And I said, please tell me. And she goes, I know why I'm here. I live my purpose every day of my life. And when you figure out why you're here on this earth at this time and you start living in that purpose, things come to you. All that you could possibly want will come to you. And she goes, and I'm not the only one who has it. Everybody has it. But we live our lives based on what my mama told me, my best friend, these strangers on the street have told you who you are, and you can't figure out who you are. But when you sit down quietly and figure out who you are and why you're here, your whole life will change.
It's so, that is, resonates with me so much, Traci, because I'm going to tell you, as successful as I am in my career, and which I love, my career is, this is a part of my career too, right? My podcast and all of this and building my brand. And do you know, when I started doing it, I never thought it would feel so good, and it feels amazing. And it reminded me, oh, that is my purpose. I'm here to uplift people and to, bring people that are in the shadows to the forefront. And I'm here to be
Right.
motivational. I'm here as a motivator. Oh my gosh, that's my purpose. And I am walking in my purpose. That changed everything for me. Ever since then, I've manifested it, but ever since then, I have felt like I'm on the precipice of something large, something big is coming. And that I gotta tell you, that is why I do believe what she said is right. When you are walking in your purpose and you working in your purpose, everything comes to you, and the feeling of what you're doing is so different than when it's something that you are doing. Because for instance, me myself, I remember my first husband went through inroads and he got a corporate job and he was successful, and like I just did the same blueprint. I was like, well, that's how he did it, so I'm just going to do that. I did the same thing because that's all I knew is the way to be successful. Go to college, get your get your undergrad, get your graduate degree, you have a good career, and you get your pension, and you get your watch, and you retire. And I'm like, but that's not what I feel I'm called here for. Like, I don't feel like that's all I'm supposed to do, or if that's even it at all. And so I had to find, and it took me 3 years to do this because I needed the confidence, and
Oh yeah.
I had to really think about like putting myself out there, because there's going to be somebody that's going to comment on YouTube and say something mean, and I'm like, having to get up the guts to have to like deal with that, and so I that resonated with me. I like that is a gem that people could walk away from, because if you aren't working your purpose, you're walking in somebody else's, and that don't ever work out.
Never. No, it really doesn't. But I think for most of us, you talk about how do we help women who are struggling, right? For most of us, I think that's why we struggle, right? Somebody told you you were too black. So you hiding behind that, right? You putting all these creams on your face. I
Face
could have
is
been
like,
that
yeah,
person, right? I could have been that person. Like, how am I worthy? Because I'm not light enough to have any. You know what I'm saying? Like,
mhm,
that's stupid. Like,
that's
it's
crazy.
so
Yeah.
it's crazy. But I think that we take what people say. And have you read the book Inner Engineering?
No, I mean, I've gotten all these good book ideas from all my
Oh
guests.
my God. Okay,
Inner
so the
engineering.
two
Okay,
books
great.
that I would recommend. You should do this on your podcast. I'm like ideas person, right?
Okay, great.
The
I love
two
that.
books you got to ask people books they would recommend. Two books that I would recommend. I mean, I read all the time. Like
So do I. Same,
I
same.
read 4 books so far this year. It's freaking January.
Same,
Okay,
same.
right?
I read three, but yeah, yeah, yeah.
Right. So the book that someone gave to me, I do these keynote speeches, and that's what I really am focused on. The course I'm working on, the keynote speeches. But one of my speeches, this business owner came over and she goes, "You got to read this book. It's called Good Energy, and it's all about how we need to be healthier." And how the medical industry is truly making us sick. And it was doctors are set up to treat illnesses because the whole medical school system was made up and funded by the pharmaceutical industry,
Hmm.
right? So the whole idea is we're going to treat your sickness with drugs as opposed to how do we treat your body so you don't get sick, right?
Right. So that, what do they say? Take your or what is it? Make your vitamins your food, or your food, or whatever it
Yes,
is that's saying
yes,
about, yeah.
yeah,
Oh, girl,
100%.
I'm gonna be infamous on this show for messing up a quote. Every time
But
I'm
it's
like,
okay.
like
It's a
I'll
new
tell you.
quote. That's how you look at it. It's a new quote.
It's new, yeah. It's the remix.
So, but the other one is Inner Engineering, and I
Okay.
love the book. It's tiny. It is so dense, though. Oh my God, it takes you so long to read it because you keep reading it over. But honestly, I feel like everyone should read that book. It talks about how it's like your body is its own mechanism, and you can't allow those negative things in because you absorb them, right?
No, they
And
become a part of you.
they
Now
become a
now
part of
you're
you,
I'm taking on this negativity. Yes.
right?
I
And
even
so
have to sometimes tell my mom when she tells me stories. I'm like, if it's about something like I don't want their problem or like whatever it is to be on me, because it's the emotional and the weight, it's the emotional weight that it carries with you.
it's so
Yeah.
funny. So that's an Oprah thing too, by the way. Her thing is you don't watch stuff that is gonna, change who you are. You get rid of the toxic people there. And it's so funny. This is I can't remember. There's a movie. It's either there's a book and a movie. One is Simon Birch. The other one is like Owen Meany, right? I
I
can't
know
remember
Simon
which.
Birch though, yeah.
Yeah. Oh my God. I had no idea what the movie is about. My husband goes, "You got to watch this movie." We were dating at the time. He goes, "It's one of my favorite movies." Sharice, I sobbed from the first 5 minutes all the way to the end. Like I've never cried. It touched me in such a way. It took me months to get that sorrow out of my system. And at that time, I thought, you can't do this to yourself anymore. You can't do this. So I stopped watching sad movies that involve kids and dying. Like I haven't seen one in probably 15 years because I can't get out of it.
Oh, see, and you carry that, and see, people are see, and it's funny you say that. My husband, I watch a lot of true crime. I'm a true crime
Oof.
junkie. I know, I am a true crime, and I enjoy it. Like I do. I'm not even gonna lie. I really actually do. So, and I was gonna ask you when we stop recording. I had a question to ask you about working on something that was true crime related. So now I know you don't want to do it.
Okay, that's it. Depends. It depends. My whole reporter life was true crime.
Oh well, yeah. You were true crime. That's
I
right.
was true
You
crime.
were true crime.
I mean,
Yes,
there was
yes.
one story I did where we have police scanners. I don't know if they still have police scanners,
No,
but that's
I
what we
don't know
got.
either, but I heard that on a New York Homicide. I was watching it the other day,
Yeah,
and they talked
yeah, we
about the
have police
scanners.
scanners in the car. Sometimes we had them on the
Yeah.
assignment desk, and like my assignment desk editor would call us and say, "Hey, we hear there's a shooting happening. You guys are super close to it." And I'm like, I don't want to go to no shooting
I don't
happening.
want to
You
go
know
to
what I
no
mean? Like,
shooting.
what the hell? I don't
Yeah.
want to get shot. And so
Right.
we go, and literally, the guy is on the ground dying.
Oh
Like,
shoot.
no, we got there before the police, and I was like, and I told my friend, I was like, I don't know how to help him. Like, he's bleeding out on the ground, and I didn't know what to do, and he's like convulsing, and I'm like, where is he bleeding? I don't know. Do I put pressure on it? Do
Yeah,
I?
I'm not a doctor. I have no
And,
idea. I don't even know. I
and my
actually think.
photographer's like, Trace, we got to go. The guy just shot him. He's here. He's somewhere. And I was like,
Yeah,
yeah,
the
but we got to save
culprit.
him. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, oh my God, it was the craziest thing. So wait, real quickly, this one story just came up. I had to cover this story of a shooting. They sent me on this shooting, and it was a 9-year-old girl who had gotten shot,
Mm-hmm.
and her 10-year-old neighbor shot
Oh my.
her. He got the gun from the father. They were all playing outside, and he starts waving the gun. It was like a ton of kids waving the gun. All the kids started running just as this girl is opening her front door. He shot her in the ankle, right? So it wasn't life threatening, but still, it was
Mm-hmm.
just like it could have been so much worse. And I go to interview the grandmother, who is not that much older than me at the time, and I was pretty damn young. And I was like, and her first question, she's like, "Well, why are you here?" And I was like, "Well, I'd love to talk to you about your granddaughter being shot." And she goes, "That's news?" And I said, "Well, yeah, she's only 9 years old." And she goes, "You ain't never been shot?" I was like, "Woo, no,
No,
girl,
I've
I
never
had
been
never
shot.
been shot," right? But that was her reality. She
No,
said
I ain't never been shot.
everybody in her family had been shot. So she looked at it as a good thing that this little girl had been shot at 9, because that means that she's not going to be shot later. That was the narrative in their family. And so I think sometimes we forget, because honestly, I have been so incredibly blessed.
Same.
And I'm not sure why some people's lives are better than other people, and not judging in any way. I mean,
But like some people have a better quality of life than other people, and like
absolutely.
yeah,
And people were like, "Well, I can't believe she said that to you." And I said, but for her, it was more of a protection of her grandchild, right? Because if
yeah.
she could be shot in the ankle, that's nothing. Nothing. Because she said she was shot in the heart, like close, the bullet crossed through her, but passed by her heart, and she didn't die. And I'm like, oh my God. So she goes, so she only got shot in the ankle. And I was like, but no, I ain't never been shot.
No, I ain't never been shot. Yeah.
No. Mm-mm.
You know, one of the things I wanted, we talked about this a little bit, but
Okay.
and it's another Oprah thing. So that's, you brought me onto the Oprah thing. I want to pull on this thread. Oprah did say on one of her, and this has to do with self love too, is about, obviously my next segment is going to be on healthy relationships. I have
Nice.
one on that and one on self-care rituals, but one of the things that for me that is really part of my self-care is like friendships that matter, and friendships that are rich, and that are, they pour into you, you pour into them. And one of the things Oprah did say, I heard it on a thing, her and Gail were giving an interview. She said, you cannot be friends with anyone that is jealous of you. Not even a smidgen of jealousy. Not even, you think you're blah, 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 any of that. And I want to understand, because I agree that that is very hard. Um, and it does get hard as your lives evolve and friendships do take a toll when people go in different directions with their career and who they're married to and what. So tell me how that's influenced you, and like what you think about that statement and how it resonates with you.
Funny you said that. So after I interviewed Oprah, I interviewed Gail, right?
That's
Because
funny.
they were together. And I asked her about that. I asked, it's almost like you're in my head. I asked her, how is it being friends? And I really had to be careful with how I asked, right? So I wasn't saying, girl, Oprah's so big and you so little. How you friends with her? You know what I mean? Like that kind of thing. But
Yeah.
I said, how is it being friends with Oprah? And I said, you're in the news. You're always compared to her, almost as if you're in her shadows. When you yourself, you're such a dynamic woman
And has
yourself.
an amazing career as well, right?
Right. And I said, how is that? And she goes, girl, the best part of my life is being friends with Oprah. If I can raise her up and be her best friend, she gives me as much as I give her. And she said, this is a give and take, and it doesn't really matter how people see it. She said, this is an honor to walk with my best friend every day. Could you imagine hanging out with your best friend every day and working with her? And I was like, that'd be kind of fun. She goes,
That I think so too. Yeah.
right. So I think to her point, and she said, there's no jealousy here. Because it goes back to self-love, the same thing you're talking about, Sharice. If we love ourselves first, because that really should be our greatest, our ultimate love,
Mm-hmm.
like the love of yourself, because then you can love. I can cheer you on because I know you're doing your thing, right? And you're
Mm-hmm.
loving it. And not be jealous in the least little bit. Have I thought about starting a podcast? I swear for 10 years. But you know what I mean? But I'm like, girl, I ain't done it yet. We talked about that, right? I was like, girl,
We
I wanted
did.
to do a podcast. I got a name. I got some
That's how
segments.
I was.
I got, right? I got all this stuff. But I'm not going to be jealous because you're doing it. And I'm
Right.
like, how can I help you? What
Right.
can I do? Right?
Yeah.
But it's only because I'm good, right? I don't need to have a
Yep.
piece of everything everybody else has. I will give you this story, and I won't say any names. So I used to do this talk show with Lisa Gibbons. Do you remember Lisa Gibbons from
Yes.
Entertainment Tonight? So
Yep.
she was the host. I was the celebrity host. So I got to interview all the celebrities. So it was amazing,
That's
right?
kind of cool. Yeah.
Um, and we were doing this show, and it was thriving. I loved every minute of it. And one of my old colleagues had just been laid off from a job. And we were looking for someone to do like stories on the side. So I said to her, and I said, oh my God. She goes, would you hook me up? And I said, oh my God, absolutely. Because why wouldn't I? Right. And I said, well, I can put in a good word with the executive producer. You'll have to go through the interview or every air, and everything. But I know you're a solid reporter. I think you'd be fantastic. So I get her in. They love her, of course. And she didn't realize that the executive producer and I are friends from way back, right? Like we've
Okay.
known each other for years. She went into her office and said, how do I get Traci's job? And my friend talked to her and she was like, we love Traci. Traci's not going anywhere. I'm not sure where this is coming from. But again, she doesn't know we're friends, right? And so, of course, when she left, the friend called me up and said, how well you know this girl? And I was like, well, we were colleagues and she needed help. So I thought it'd be great. I said, did she do something wrong? Because I think she's a phenomenal reporter. She said she just came into my office and asked how she can get your job.
Oh my God.
Isn't that some crazy crap? So,
Well, people are crazy, girl. People are getting weirder and
well,
weirder, and
this
so
is
I
why you
just,
can't have anybody jealous of you in your camp because you can't close your eyes.
well,
You,
no,
you
because you always have to worry about sabotage. Like, are you gonna sabotage me? You're
right?
not gonna sabotage
Oh, she
me.
started this whole campaign with one of the other producers. And my executive producer was like, "Oh no, she's out, girl." She lost her job. But it's one of those, who does that? People
Who
do it all
does
the
that?
time. but people do it all the time. And it's like, it's unfortunate because I'm the kind of person who will help anybody. You can call me
Same,
and say,
same, same, same. I don't think twice about it. I'm like, oh yeah, sure.
I
Now,
don't
I'm not
either.
gonna put my name out on the line for you
No,
if I like
no.
you ain't got good work ethic or something like that. And then you're like, can you get
Mm-mm.
me a job? I can't. But I'll be honest, no, I can't because your track record is not. You're not gonna have them looking at me sideways.
Yeah, but you don't think that they're going to sabotage you in the meantime.
No, right.
Oh, and I called her
I
because
would have
I'm
too.
also very confrontational, right? So I was like, girl, because my executive producer's like, you gonna call her, right? I was like, oh, you know I'm gonna hang up and call her as soon as we hang up. So anyway, and she goes, oh, I'm so sorry. I only meant when you leave. And I said, no, no. See, and you're a liar. And I was
Now
like,
you lie.
because then you would come to me and say, look, girl, when you decide to leave, let them know that I'm interested in your job because I love what you do and I will support you, but I want to do that too. See, I got no issues with that. But you gonna go behind my back.
And I
This
got you this
is
job. I helped
why
you. And I helped you.
but you know what? I once had a conversation with the NASA administrator who I love. And he was like, I can't remember his quote. He was like a walking quote, but he was like, you got to have hustlers, drug dealers, uh, hackers, all these people in your camp. You got to have everybody in your camp because they spot crap that you ain't going to catch, right? And so he's like, you surround yourself with a variety of people. You don't want people who look like you and act like you. And he goes, you want everybody in your camp because they will spot the jealous people. They will spot the thieves. They will spot. And I was like, dude, I'm loving you.
It's true though.
It's so true. So
It's
anyway,
so
I
true.
think that's you do have to have people who are genuinely happy for you and supportive of you and have their own thing going on so
That's
that
the
you can all
part.
succeed.
Yep, their own thing going on. Like all of that is incredible because it is true. I mean, and I think we both have gone through those similar things before. I mean, just like I could not imagine somebody going in and going, "How do I get Sharice's job?" Like I'd be like,
Yeah, but here's the
"Have
thing,
you
Sharice.
lost your
You
mind?"
probably don't know. If somebody didn't call you and tell you
So
they did
yeah,
it,
I wouldn't even know.
you wouldn't know.
I wouldn't even know. Oh, honey. Yeah, that is insane. Well, I am wanting to thank you so much for joining us and sharing your wisdom, your story, and your light. Sharing your light with me. You've given us a lot to reflect on in these scenarios and circumstances. You're such a good storyteller. To all our queens listening, I want to leave you with this. Your story matters. Your voice matters. And the journey to self love is not about perfection, it's progress. Take the time to honor who you are, where you've been, and where you're going. Next week, I'll be diving into another powerful conversation about self-care and how to create self-care rituals that stick, like real ones. So make sure you're subscribed and ready to join us. Until then, remember this: you are worthy, you are resilient, and you are a queen. Take care, and I will see you next time on Queens Behind the Scenes.